Coaches, good evening. Welcome to the Coach Gives Defense Lab. Well, actually, tonight's going to be the Draft Lab. I'm here with Clint Goss from the Draft Professor. And Clint, we've been trying to get a hold of each other, kind of do this and missing each other. But it's good to finally sit down and talk some ball with you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Glad this lined up for us this time. I've been looking forward to this.
Yeah, so tell the listeners kind of how you got. I know you have a lot of experience in radio, different draft and analytics and things like that, kind of how you got started and got to the point that you're at now.
Yeah, really in the last few years, a lot of guest spots, doing radio, TV, appearances such as this, as far as some home outlets, covering the Falcons, which is my team as far as the NFL, with SI, Sporting News, some NFL draft there as well. Currently enjoying my time with Draft Professors, but really NFL draft centric with a little bit of a focus on Atlanta Falcons. I describe it best as if you're a Falcons fan, you really enjoy it. And if you pull for one of the other 31 teams, it's not enough to bother you.
So I guess getting right into it, and like I said, I was telling you off camera, I love, looking at your content, the different draft, the different draft posts you have. So for you as someone that's done this for a long time, obviously, pulling for the Falcons, but just in general, what are some things that you look for when you're doing an evaluation of a possible prospect?
Yeah, NFL wise, I think the first thing for me is non-teachables. I know a lot of people's answer might have been the teachable stuff that you can elevate to another level. For me, it's just the starting points of things that can't be taught. Straight line speed, lateral speed, just God-given strength, your body habitus that you're kind of starting with as a focal point. A lot of guys, just in terms of their motor, I don't think that's something that necessarily gets taught. Standing out in a crowd, when I was thinking about this episode, you asked me what are some things I look for. It's somebody that could stand out enough on tape. And when I say that my wife could notice, my wife doesn't know a ton of football. She knows it enough to bond with me over it. Somebody that my wife could watch and say, man, that guy's really special right there. That must be who you're looking at right there. That's an old Jim Donnan quote back from the Georgia days. But along those lines, more of the non-teachable things that stick out. And then kind of that second level of stuff that can be worked on. Oh, this guy needs to gain a little bit of weight. Oh, this guy needs some technique work with his hands. Oh, this guy needs to just kind of get a little more committed to not having that second thought before in terms of his reaction time, things like that. Is personal preference with me. Yeah.
So what are some of the things, I guess, and again, I love having guys on with your experience because it's stuff that, we sit and watch the NFL draft and we're like, that pick or, this, so what do you think are some of the biggest misconceptions of the NFL draft process?
That's an easy one to me. People thinking that it's all logic. It's reality television. And I'm not just talking about the production, like watching Kuiper on ESPN. I'm talking about the game, the art of it, the value, certain teams' preferences, teams putting out smoke screens, teams wanting to take a risk or having a higher threshold for taking a risk in terms of a player's ability or projection or scheme fit or just this guy rubbed me the wrong way in an interview, or, oh, I've got a real good connection with this college I used to work for and this coach and things of the like. You'll see all these comments from people about, particularly leading up that month or two to the draft of, oh, no, Falcons would never do that. And that might not be the best example of a team to use for would never do that. But, oh, the Bills would never do this. Patriots would never do this. No, that guy's not going to go there. And it's like, yeah, they very well could. Always the saying of we've seen crazier things happen. Yeah, you're going to project it, you're going to cover it, and you're going to go into it with a logical mindset of what should happen, but that doesn't mean what will ultimately happen. That's part of the most aggravating part of it from a consumer standpoint, but that's also part of the most fun of it from a consumer standpoint.
So do you think I'm going to kind of work backwards. I'm going to go to NFL, college, and then talk about high school. Do you think there's any measurable metrics that can, obviously the combine, I think back to, and I'll be 47 in a couple of weeks. And I think back to Mike Mamula at the NFL Combine, like blew up because he had a unbelievable combine, and then obviously, first round pick and didn't really pan out. And do you think there's any measurable metrics that can consistently predict future success in the league at something like that?
If I had to pick one, I think it's the 10-yard split. I think that everybody, obviously the most glamorized and the most publicized is the 40. Yeah, you'll get some people that really like a bench. Yeah, you'll get people that like to dig in a little deeper, like watching guys run the hoop or things of the like, somebody hitting a sled. I get all that. But I think if you were to just look at every position outside of, say, quarterback, running back, all the way to big men, all the way to defensive backs, that 10-yard split, just in terms of that, who can go from stop to first step and be nearly at top speed versus somebody that's got to hold it for the duration of, say, that 10 to 40-yard mark. I think particularly, too, when you look at it as far as big men, it's like, yeah, is it fun to look at big offensive guards out there and big Jordan Davis types on the defensive interior running cool numbers in the 40? Absolutely. How many times is Jordan Davis running 40 yards downfield? Every player out on the field is running a 10-yard split worth of just 0 to acceleration to top speed at every position. So universally, that would be a pretty easy answer for me. That's the one year in and year out I personally get the most geeked about.
Yeah, I think you bring up a great point because, the 40 – it's funny. Today I was watching I was on a break at work, and I was watching this video popped up, and it was Bo Jackson talking about when he was getting ready to run the 40, but he was actually at Auburn. He's getting ready to go to track practice. And track coaches came up to him and like, listen, there's these scouts here, like just run it. So he's like, all right, well, so he runs it and kind of cruises. And it was laser timed. And he's like, I got clocked at like a 4.36. And the football coach is like, come on, man, like give these guys a show. So he said, open up that back door. He's like, because I can't stop right, at the laser, like I'm going to run through it. And he's like, they clocked me at a 4.12, and then, but I'm with you. Like, to me, that 10-yard split, especially for, like you said, positions that don't need to hold it for that long, like the D lineman, the O lineman, even the edge guys, right? Like even the, like linebackers shouldn't be running 40 yards, but those guys can be elite in that 10-yard split. I'm with you 100%.
Well, I think, too, even if you looked at more positions the 40 does apply, like take receivers, for example. It's different archetypes of receivers that you can get more of that tunnel vision on the 10-yard split and say, like, yeah, this guy's more of a chain mover. He's a short to intermediate receiver. This is not a vertical threat kind of guy. It doesn't mean he's any lesser of a player than the one-trick pony that just runs on the sideline 40 yards in a straight line. What archetype are you looking for? What's the need? Where do they stand out? I think it's just more of a complete profile metric at each position and every position.
I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more just because everybody's different. And, I got two Falcon questions before we move into college now. College, Georgia Bulldogs.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So what do you? Well, let's do. Actually, I lied. I'm gonna go 3. I'm gonna go 1, and then I'm gonna go 2 draft questions. How do you foresee this whole quarterback thing playing out this year? Obviously, you got a new head coach who I think got a raw deal in Cleveland. To be honest, I think he's a pretty good. I mean, listen, you're coaching NFL, man. You're not a bad football coach. So how do you, in your opinion, just being a fan and covering for so many years, how do you feel this whole thing's going to play out? You got 2 lefties.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. There's so much of that kind of coach speak, executive speech going on right now, just in terms of, oh, well, it's an open quarterback competition, but we hadn't really started it yet because we don't have Penix at 100% health. I'm calling bull on that.
Yeah.
I was having a talk with Terrence Mathis, a Falcons legend, 2 nights ago. We did an interview, and I asked him this very question. And it was like he said to me, he might have come off like he was kind of joking, but he was being serious. And he kind of turned his head and he looked at me and he was like, they know who the hell they want.
Mm-hmm.
they know who they want.
Yeah.
Between the two of them, from my vantage point, I think Tua is in a better spot right now in terms of the health is there, more so know what he is. And I think with Penix's health, because there's going to come a point where like they can't name the starter 3 days before kickoff. It's already kind of coming up as far as the direction of the team and offensively and a new coaching staff. They're going to have to make a call here. I think it's going to be a situation of they start off with Tua, and if he goes out there and it's going rough, they'll give Penix a chance. But no, I think if I was sitting here having a beer with Tua, I'd be looking at him being like, dude, the spot's here for the taking for you to take it and not give it back. That kind of thing. I think schematically it's a good fit with Stefanski. Like you said, I feel fine about Stefanski. I think for anybody, it's tough to work for the Haslams in Cleveland. I think that's one of, if not the toughest job in the NFL. And not to say that the Falcons is like you walked into a Lamborghini in terms of traditionally, I'm very self-aware. But there are so many tools to work with, particularly from skill. You're coming in with a Bijan, you're coming in with a Drake London, you're coming in with Chris Lindstrom, arguably the best guard in the league. Jake Matthews has been playing what feels like 20 years, et cetera, et cetera. I think Tua, I think it's definitely different archetypes in the fact, you've got Tua more of the touch, polish passer. You've got Penix, who's the shotgun gunslinger, more youth versus experience. They've both got extensive injury profiles. Not to sound like a smart aleck, but I had said a few weeks ago when somebody asked me earlier on, I said, I kind of think a lot of this mindset from Matt Ryan, Ian Cunningham, and Kevin Stefanski and company is 1 + 1 = 1. Between the two of them, the likelihood of both of them getting through the season fully healthy is very minimal.
Mm-hmm.
But between the two of them, we can get through the whole thing and see where we stand going into next draft season and next free agency. We'll see. But no, to wrap up and finish your question, I'd feel better about it with Tua right now, frankly, if I had to choose one way. But it'll be interesting to see. Penix is definitely, while they're not rushing him back, behind closed doors and those people in his company, I imagine they're looking at him kind of like, you need to get after it, dude.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt. So, draft. So, in your opinion, let's start with what you feel is the best in the best draft that the Falcons have had, in your opinion.
The best Falcons draft they've had since I've been around.
Yeah,
I could do that from two angles. If you went more singular in terms of like you needed one or two players, it's hard to argue against the big moves of trusting your gut, taking a Matt Ryan over a Glenn Dorsey at 3rd overall back in 2008. That's a hard one to argue. You could flip it over. If you were to ask me my favorite as that covers the draft and someone that is a Falcons consumer and has covered the Falcons, I could have another 100 drafts and I will never top that Julio trade. I will never top that. Going from 27 to 6th overall, we watched the Bengals at 4, knowing they're going a receiver. Take AJ Green. Julio was a little bit more of the physical archetype they were desiring, viewing that the team really was a player away. And in reality, they were. Yes, did they need some more defensive depth? Yeah. But for the identity of that team with Kyle Shanahan and company to have just been firepower, that was it. To make that kind of bold of a move, and yes, am I a lifelong Georgia fan and gone to more Georgia games than I could count? Yeah. But I've done that enough. It's like, I've watched Julio wax my dogs a time or two enough to have known that we were as excited as could be for that. That is arguably top 3, top 5 high school players I've ever seen where you were just like, this dude's going to play in the NFL. Like for that to be the first big recruit that Saban signed at Bama, it was just like, this dude's going to play for Saban for 3 years and be a first-round pick. Pretty cool. Coming out of Foley, Alabama. That one would be hard to top. If you looked at as a whole, I tell you, I think it's hard to argue against. And you have to add in the disclaimer. You got to see what kind of comes of this James Pierce Jr. situation off the field. But just as far as the on-field production, 10.5 sacks as a rookie, to get Jalen Walker out of that Georgia program, who I think takes a breakout step this year towards being maybe a 7-8 sack guy, really a leader there. Xavier Watts at 96 was the best pick of that entire draft. I'm talking for the entire league. If there was a redraft today, he's a first-round pick. Billy Bowman in the 4th round, though he had a rough Achilles injury last year, 6 games in at a nickel spot for them to have really had a plan for him. I mean, he had all the looks, and we'll see how he comes back of a multi-year starter. I'd say that 2 drafts ago is the most in up to 10 years I've walked out of one and been like, we did business tonight.
And like that nickel spot today in the NFL is like so elite. I think the Seahawks showed that with Witherspoon, in the Super Bowl. It'll be interesting to see because I was talking with I took Levon Kirkland on last night and I had Carl Banks on a couple of weeks ago, just talking about like how now the NFL is going back to that 12, 13 personnel as opposed to the K-gun, Jim Kelly, 4 wide, throw it around. It'll be interesting to see how that evolves with the draft process for a lot of these NFL teams. If most of the NFL decides to go back to, a 2 tight end set, but you never know.
Well, guys like Bowman that can play some of these more hybrid, star positions. I mean, for him to have the looks of kind of a stout corner, a traditional safety. I mean, I'm gonna tell you, some of his best snaps he had last season was at just a traditional linebacker lineup. Yep. For a 4th round pick to have been as versatile as he was for Jeff Ulbrich in that defense. That was 100% an Ulbrich pick that was like, oh, I can get creative with this guy, to your point. No, absolutely. Those will get more and more favored as we go along this year. And just in terms of the Falcons, you saw it this year. I mean, a Harold Perkins pick in the 6th round, the versatility with that to be able to play, some true edge spot and play linebacker, maybe even some of that star hybrid defensive back. Those guys fascinate me in the league more and more as we go.
So in your experience, I'm talking to the fan now, misses, like you look back and you were like, man, we were in position to take this guy, or man, we took this guy when we should have took this guy, like either based on need or whatever. Like what's your deal with that?
A specific example?
Yeah.
The worst one of my life that up to this point, if you ask me what's the one that's ate me up the most, taking Peter Kahns as an interior offensive lineman out of Wisconsin, when I can remember sitting there screaming at that TV about a guy named Levante David coming out of Nebraska, proceeds to go start for the Bucs for about 15 years, deserves to be a Hall of Fame player. In terms of football player of the last decade, I think it's one of the best 4 or 5 all-around players that's been in the league. Oh, man, that one ate me up inside. I mean, I remember being a younger guy and just being like, take the David kid. And then to just really have the just dagger in the chest for it to be in the division.
Yep.
That's a little more further back example, but no, when I get asked a question like that, that's always the go-to of like, God, that one's so bleak. And that's not even throwing a dig at Peter Kahns. But I mean, David, that one to me, and there was an interior offensive line need, don't get me wrong. And those are 2 positions that are not money positions. I get that. I just thought in terms of the profile of experience and where they were at college, project into the league, and I can't sit here and wave the flag and say that I knew that Levante David would go be a 15-year starter in the face of a defense and a historical defensive brand like the Bucs. But at the same time, in hindsight, having seen him done it, I'm like, oh, yeah, I knew that guy was a dog. So that was an easy one.
I think back to two things for the Falcons that I always think back to is beating the Vikings in the 98 NFC Championship game. My uncle is an Eagles fan and was close with Randall Cunningham when he was in Philadelphia, and I got a chance to meet him and kind of ask him, about that game, and he's just like, he's obviously, is a reverend now and reformed himself, and I remember being like, like 15, 16 years old and asking him, and he was just like, listen, he's like, they just had our number. He's like, we just, it just, they ran the ball, like basically kind of saying that, Dan Reeves outcoached Brian Billick, in that game. And then I go back to my buddy posed this question to me the other day, and we were talking about different drafts. I told him that you were coming on, and he looked you up, and he's like, he goes, you got to ask them, what if they took LT instead of Michael Vick? How would that have changed for the better or for the worse? So that's a question from my buddy in New Jersey. That's an NFL guy, and I said I had a Falcons guy coming on.
You're going to be surprised when I say this. I don't know that I would even change that in hindsight. From the career turnout, yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
But I will say, for this particular environment, and that being Atlanta is the ultimate melting pot.
Yep.
Atlanta, very much, particularly in that era. I mean, Vic, dude, you want to talk about everybody had a jersey.
Oh.
That in terms of icon in this market, he's the biggest I've seen.
You remember the Michael Vick Experience commercial?
Oh, dude, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was the coolest thing ever. Like,
yep.
And not to say that LT wouldn't have been humongous. I mean, the closest you could kind of look at that is what we have now in Bijan.
Sure.
I also think, too, if you look at some of the butterfly effect of it, yes, was there a lot of misfortune in the Vic situation in terms of some of the legality? Absolutely.
Yep.
But it was almost like that. What did I say earlier on in the episode about Matt Ryan, Glenn Dorsey in that situation?
Yep.
We were so down bad coming off of that Vic situation, and to have not been in that room, but know enough people to know it. Arthur Blank looked at all of them and said, we're taking this kid, Matt Ryan, out of Boston College. We got to move on. I can't do this anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So I think in terms of setting up for what's been the best tenure of Falcons football, led by Matt Ryan, he's now the president of football here going into a new regime. He is the greatest Falcon in the history of this franchise. For somebody from my era, I mean, that's the face of it. When that's who I think. Who is the most talented Falcon in my time? Julio Jones. Who is the greatest Falcon in my time? Matt Ryan. But no, the question about LT, I mean, oh, no, it would have been absolutely electric. Like I said, I think it would have been more of what we're experiencing now.
Sure.
Bijan, and I will say this, we've been starved for some playoff football here about 7-8 years now.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, we've been starved for a franchise quarterback, and to have had all that open with Ryan, all the good that came just league wide from Vic. I mean, Vic revolutionized the whole mobile quarterback and guys that have that elite of athleticism, letting them stick there at that position versus trying to kick them somewhere else.
Yep.
There is no Lamar Jackson without a Michael Vick. There's not. He'd tell you that himself.
Mm-hmm.
So I think for recording here from Atlanta, from this market and this team and this town, but then even bigger, the future of the team where it is now, the league as a whole, the game as a whole, the butterfly effect of sorts, I wouldn't change it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a hell of a question.
Yeah. You know what? And I thought about it, and I'm like, I think back to, like, obviously I grew up in New Jersey. So like, I didn't watch TCU football because it wasn't on. Right. But Virginia Tech was in the Big East. I got to see Virginia Tech a lot, and I'm like, this guy is unreal. And when it came time for that draft, I was like, I don't know who's draft number. I didn't know. I was like, I don't know who's draft number one yet, but they better be taking that quarterback from Virginia Tech. He is a freaking game changer, But it's great to see what he's done post NFL, getting involved coaching and giving back to the community, and it just shows why football is the greatest sport in the world, because it teaches you how to persevere and fight through adversity. Getting into college, man, I'm going to throw this one at you. What's your opinion? And this is a non-Georgia question, because I got a couple of Georgia questions, but what's your opinion on this whole Sorsby thing going on at Texas Tech? It's tough.
It's tough. I think it's kind of BS.
Yeah.
I think if you took just about any fan base, if you were to tell me you were a Virginia Tech guy, if you were to tell me you were a Cal Berkeley guy, if you were to tell me you were a Texas Longhorns guy, et cetera, about anybody can pick on something where one of their players got his hand smacked for something much less than this.
Yeah.
Much less than this, that impacted a season, that impacted a regime, that impacted a winning window. I'm not even just talking about the gambling thing. Hell, go back to my Georgia Bulldogs, for example. I never got to see A.J. Green play a full season because he gets busted for selling a jersey. I never get to see Todd Gurley go win a Heisman Trophy in that winning window because he's selling a jersey. He gets 4 games for a couple $100, maybe $1,000, $2,000 versus gambling of this magnitude. I think there's certain ethical, even if it's unspoken laws and truths to the history of this game as far as no-nos. Gambling on the game itself, where does this set now for us going forward? I think it's just a really bad spot. I don't like the murkiness of, oh, well, we've gone to this other court setting and we might have this judge who has an involvement with Texas Tech. It just was extremely orchestrated. I also don't like it from a conference standpoint of, you don't think these other teams playing against them, I saw a lot of these reports of teams putting out like, don't schedule Texas Tech, man. Don't schedule. I'll say this.
Big Ten came out and said, we're not scheduling.
We're not doing it. Georgia's already said that they're not doing it. Not that that's as closely related, but just to say from where I am, and look, I've never been a D1 schedule maker. I'm not a Big Ten head football coach.
Right.
Acknowledging that. But projecting myself in that, I'd imagine I'd walk into my boss's office and say, I'm not playing them, dude. I'm not opening our kids for this speculation. I'm not putting our kids in this situation with him on the field. I'm not putting our fans in this situation. I'm not putting the results of these games us in this situation. And frankly, I'm just not condoning it. And again, let me say this. This is not me speaking on Sorsby as an individual.
Right.
I understand he has an addiction. I mean, you're listening to a guy here. I'm a year sober at this point. I get it. I get somebody addressing something they needed to make a change in their life. So of all people, I am a direct testament to, there's no judgment there. But having said that, and I'm not saying he hasn't taken accountability for his actions, but these institutions have taken no accountability and no punishment for this. I mean, a 2-game suspension, man, like, come on, bro. That's nothing. They're going to throw Will Howard. That kid's very capable. Not Will Howard. I got the name wrong. The Texas Tech backup. I'll have to get fact checked on that. But to say it's like, the whole thing just kind of sucks.
Yeah, and I think, like, I don't know. I think well, I shouldn't say it lessens it. I think the authority of the NC2A is already at the least capacity that it could be. But I'm glad the kid's getting help. At the end of the day, like, it's football, man, and I think, like, and it's the same thing. Like, I coach in Florida. You're in Georgia. There's Texas, California. There's 4 states in the continental United States where football is huge, and people just go out of their mind and do stupid stuff. And but I'm glad the kid's getting help. But I got up the other day and I saw the headline, Lubbock judge, and I'm like, oh. I said, as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh, this.
And I'll tell you too, not to delve too much in my own personal life, but it is ways that I, as much as I can, relate to it. My father was a career judge.
Yeah.
You can laugh when I say that. Just to say in terms of, like, I'm not a lawyer. I never pretend to be a lawyer.
Right.
But as far as the whole, that world, I done that.
Right.
Like, right. And that's a no-no, man. That's murky.
Oh, there's. I said I saw that headline and I was like, well, this is getting resolved.
Womp womp womp.
Yeah, 100%. What do you think of? I know there's always a lot of talk, and I don't. Same thing I felt with the NC2A basketball. Like, there doesn't need to be expansion of the college football playoffs. Like I was watching something the other day, and they're like, oh, there should be 24 teams, and I'm like, no, like the society we live in, not everybody gets a trophy, man. Like I'm happy with the way it is now. Like, yes, JMU went to Oregon and got beat. Okay, that's awesome. But JMU also earned that right to go to Oregon and get beat. Tulane earned the right to play in. You know what I mean? Like, and you have to recognize
you got your butt smoked, but you at least earned your right to sit down at the table and eat. And
exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
No, I do have a clear the thought of expanding it 16, 24, whatever, that makes me sick.
Yeah.
Makes me sick because, and look, I get it. I'm not one of these people of like, oh, back in my day, so it's like, I get things change.
Yep.
But good Lord, you can't just rip the entire soul out of it. And one of the greatest things about college football is the intensity of the rivalries in the regular season and the intensities of how serious the matchups are in the regular season and how much stock you can put into it. Like, this isn't the sport for, like, for example, we're here in the NBA finals right now. I'm not an NBA guy. Yeah. If fair weather. Oh, if the Hawks were playing these last few days, oh, hell yeah, man, I'd have jumped in and been like, let's go Hawks. I'm into it. This isn't that sport for that. You know what I'm saying? It's like, no, you're watching it every Saturday. You're cutting it on. Even if you're not some big person, it's like you're going to get a drink with a friend or going to somebody's house to watch it. It's like, that's part of the religion of it. That's part of the warmth of it. It's like, we talk so much now about, like, go back 10, 15 years when everybody played in the bowl games. Well, now none of the guys of any of the caliber of a draft prospect playing any of these bowls outside of the playoffs. That's just going to seep into the regular season now.
Yep.
That's going to just leak into it where it's like, oh, well, we're a top 5 rated team and 24 get in. So, like, outside of maybe saying it's Michigan, Ohio State, man, we're not going to try.
That's the thing that I'm glad you brought that up, because that was one of the things that, all right. So full disclosure, right? I grew up in New Jersey. Like, I started playing Pop Warner. Same year, I just let my son start playing Pop Warner this year. He's going to 7th grade. And I'd come home on a Saturday, and I didn't have a favorite college football team. I was in 6th, 7th grade. And Rutgers was like what they are now. And I turn on ABC, and there's Desmond Howard and Bo Schembechler in Michigan. I'm like, okay. So I sit down and watch, and I go a couple weeks, and the next year. So from 1991 until 2026, I'm a University of Michigan fan. And I think to myself, like, okay, if you expand this playoff, now we're getting guys sitting out the game because the first round playoff game is the following week, because they have to obviously change the schedule up with everything. And I'm like, you go, and I think I agree with your point about the rivalries, right? Like, you go to Michigan to beat Ohio State. You go to Texas to beat Texas A&M. You go to Notre Dame to beat Southern Cal. I know they're not playing anymore for a couple of years, but you go to Georgia to beat Florida.
I mean, this is going back years. You just saying that made me think about it. It's like, if you've ever watched Junction Boys.
Oh, read the book.
I mean, that is literally like that's more some Sunday behavior than Saturday behavior.
Yeah.
If you read through my words, it's like, I hate it, man. I hate it. Like, the closest I can think to it is, like, I'm born and raised in Albany, Georgia. If you're not familiar, it's super southwest Georgia. You're essentially in Alabama.
Okay.
Like, My house was closer to Auburn than it was to Athens. In my hometown, you were Dogs or you were Auburn, and then you had about 5% little FSU, maybe in Alabama, but it's like, oh, I mean, I can tell you, I hate Auburn up here, and then there's everyone else down here. And you're more typically with a Georgia person, you usually hear like the Gators or Tech. No, from where I grew up, it's all. If you were to tell me that we got to the point that they're in October, November, that Georgia Auburn game didn't matter, I couldn't do it. Oh. Like, that's my game. That's the one where people know they're coming over to the house, and I'm barbecuing all day, and we're having a big crowd, and there's going to be beer everywhere, and everyone bring your dog, everyone bring. I mean, like that's my Super Bowl, man.
Oh, dude, and the thing now too for me is, you know, my daughter's 14, my son's 12, and I had a ticket to go to the 2021 Ohio State Michigan game when Hayden Hutchinson was the senior, and I was like, last time we won, my daughter was 6 months older, and she didn't remember it. And I said to my wife, I'm like, I just have a feeling that we're gonna win. And I want to be here with my kids to experience it. And we're sitting, and again, we're in Florida now in November. We can sit outside, you know. And I'm sitting outside, and you know, Hutch does what he does, and they whatever, and you know, we go through that 4-year run, and that's what, you know, it was crazy because like before that, I had to show my son like YouTube videos of Charles Woodson and Desmond Howard, because I'm like, hey man, we used to be like this.
The closest I can relate. Now, on the flip side, my father, where he was from, he's like, biggest Gator hater you ever saw.
Okay.
It was the same deal. It took years before we walked out of that Georgia-Florida matchup where we weren't just toting a butt whooping, man. Yep. I mean, just to say, like, more from your child's vantage point of me with a parent, of like my parent being like, I promise you we used to beat these guys some, man. I promise you we used to beat these guys some. Like, I've lived that from the other angle. No, absolutely, I get it. Yeah. And it's funny to hear you say that about the Rutgers and the Jersey and the moving to Florida. That's my wife and her family's direct path. We met at school. They're from Jersey and moved down to Florida.
Where's your wife from?
She grew up in Coral Gables. In terms of more closer to the Miami area is where she spent more of her years in terms of living in Florida before moving up here to Atlanta. Her folks.
We're in Jersey.
God, it's escaping me right at this moment where her dad's from. Her mom's more of a Queens lady. Her dad's the real through and through Jersey guy. It's escaping me at the top of the moment. But
you'll have to message me when you find out, because I grew up on the beach. I grew up in Manasquan, right on the beach in Jersey. But I played football at St. Peter's College in Jersey City. So if your mother-in-law's from Queens, your father-in-law might be from that Patterson, North Jersey area. But no, it's all good. So let's talk about your Bulldogs, man. So going into this draft, who do you think, I guess, one, who are the obvious no-brain guys in the draft? Who are the under the radar guys that teams should be kind of looking out for?
Great question. Specifically to Georgia?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, as far as under the radar for me, I think it's Chris Cole at linebacker. I think he's somebody that if you looked at consensus right now is probably closer to like a linebacker 5, linebacker 6, linebacker 7. He'd be linebacker 1 for me right now. I think this guy could have the kind of ascension, not as extreme, but kind of similar to what we saw with Arvell Reese this past season in terms of wasn't really that talked about, came on the scene, boom, we're talking about.
That's a bad man. The Giants got a freaking steal with that dude.
Oh, absolute steal. Right, absolute steal. And I do genuinely believe Harbaugh when he says he was the #1 player on their board, and they just have an abundance of riches at that position and that archetype. I think Chris Cole is somebody along those lines. You know, for Georgia to have gone this past season from C.J. Allen kind of as the Batman and Raylan Wilson kind of as the Robin. Well, now Allen goes second round to the Colts. I think Cole just jumps it over and he takes more of that Batman role, and Raylan Wilson being more of a 3rd, 4th rounder as far as the linebacker spot, real pit bull mentality, very fast, cut up physical player. But I think just in terms of the speed profile, sideline to sideline, this more of this modern NFL lighter linebackers. You know, think of Cole, somebody in the light 230s, but very proportionally built, some coverage ability, and just is able to get what I said with Reese, can get after the quarterback and put him on his backside, man. I think a Cole is somebody that can make that kind of ascension of being a linebacker 1, linebacker 2 in this class. I think that's one. Another underrated one I'd throw out there, I think Lawson Lucky's just a football player, man. The tight end, I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with some of the ESPN profile on him, but kind of similar to Oscar Delp and what we saw this past offseason. The production in terms of what Kirby and Mike Bobo and company ask of these tight ends is not as heavy. I mean, you're talking about an offense last year that saw a dispersion from Zachariah Branch having 81 catches and then the second leading receiver having 27. I mean, boom, but just physical, can play some of that H-back kind of role, motion tight end, but he's got chops as far as a blocker, got the genetics to have had a dad and 2 uncles that played on scholarship at Georgia. Great guy. He's been a high-profile recruit coming out of Norcross. I think that's kind of another under-the-radar one that could be mentioned. More of kind of the bigger name, Ellis Robinson the fourth at corner. That dude's finna come on strong. I think when you look at, most anybody would pronounce Leonard Moore out of Notre Dame as the corner 1 right now, and he is a phenomenal prospect. I strongly believe Ellis Robinson is who the league's looking at to come be the second corner off the board. Former top 3 recruit out of IMG. So, to go from that to Kirby, he's as well coached as he could be up to this point. Yep. That same recruiting class is Jeremiah Smith. I mean, they're both top 3 overall recruits. Incredible press ability, 6 foot, 180, 185 pounds, and filling out there. I mean, him statistically last year down the stretch was just absurd. I mean, allowed multiple receptions in a game last season one time, and it was 2 catches. In terms of the whole year, he gave up something along the lines of like 15 catches and had 4 interceptions.
Yeah.
Can hang it with press in terms of his arm length, but down the field, just oily hips, no panic, ball skills. I think he has the makings of a top 15 pick. And then real quick and lastly, I throw another DB in there. I think KJ Bolden. I can tell you from the Kirby's time here in Athens, again, kind of like I said earlier about the 2 things, if you were sitting here having a beer with Kirby Smart and you asked him, who have you put more time and effort and sweat and stress into recruiting than any other recruit in your time at Georgia, you'd say KJ Bolden coming out of Buford High School. Yeah. Had been committed to Florida State, was a lot of battle there, signed him. Will be a 3-year starter at this point, kind of around 6 foot, 190, but he is so fast. I mean,
he's a dude.
Sub 5% missed tackle rate, the versatility of him. You look at some of those teams in that mid-first round that you could project. Like, you think of Brian Flores and a safety need there, couldn't just go freak mode with that dude. Yep. Very much a lead by example, not a huge speaker, but does when he needs to. I can tell you, we were talking about him here locally in the 8th grade in terms of people being like, that kid's going to play D1. Like, this kid's a freak. He could be a college receiver if he wanted to. His tackling ability, the spatial awareness, all the experience. I mean, Buford just as well might as be a D2 football program. It's that serious. Yeah. I mean, those 2 guys I just mentioned, those DBs, extremely well coached, experienced, God-given talent. What did we talk about early in the episode? Non-teachables, brother. I think those 2 guys are 2 first-round picks in the upcoming draft.
It's crazy because I grew up playing in the 4-down front and I started coaching in it, and then as time went on, you evolve as a coach, and then I got into some odd stuff. And I remember watching on YouTube the Nike clinic with Coach Schumann and Coach Smart, and Coach Smart, they talked about the transition from when they were at Bama, from the Mount Cody, because they got beat by Ohio State, to what they kind of do, under Lanning and then Schumann. And then, Kirby makes a point about, they went in clinic with Todd Orlando in Texas when he was under Tom Herman, and said, if you're an odd front, you have depth in your defense. you're so multiple in what you can do. Where if you're an even front, you're very limited as to what you can do. And then, kind of Coach Schumann said the same thing. And we were fortunate enough during COVID. I had a coaching colleague that was friends with Coach Lanning, so we got like an hour of his time. It was like one of the best hours that I've ever had as a coach, listening to him talk. And obviously, performance speaks for himself at the University of Oregon. What he's done. But yeah, man, Georgia's just a different. The high school football, the college football, like to have like Georgia Tech, Georgia State's a good football program. Like it just shows you how tradition and football rich the state is. So in your opinion, looking at this upcoming season, kind of obviously, like, listen, I'm a Michigan fan, you're a Georgia fan, right? It's like, how's your team going to do this year? Oh, we're going to win the national championship. Well, only one team win the national championship, right? So, like, what do you think? Let me ask you this: who do you see in the SEC championship game prior to the college football play?
Who does it need to be?
Who do you see?
I was being a smart aleck with my upcoming response. Who does it need to be? Sark needs to figure it out with the amount of talent they've stockpiled in Austin. Because, I mean, if you looked at across the board, nationwide, they're in, and when I say a similar spot, it's different in the fact that Ohio State has won previously in recent years.
Sure.
But it's a little similar to like with Day in the last year or two, before Indiana won it, where it was like, dude, you got to go get it done with this amount of talent you guys have stacked. You're due, particularly going all the way back with Texas, the Vince Young days. It's like, man, they are starving. I mean, you look at Arch, Cam Coleman, I think the second best receiver in the draft. I think he could be a top 5 pick kind of player. Arch, obviously, whenever he declares, he's going to be the number 1 player taken. Everyone knows that. You look at the running backs, they've got Hollywood Smothers out of NC State. That kid could have been a day 3 pick last year. Raleek Brown out of Arizona State. They upgraded both of those running back spots. The offensive line, Trevor Gooseby at tackle, I think could be the first off the board in the draft. On the other side, Baker's another one that'll get drafted. Defensively, Colin Simmons, that kid will be a top 10 pass rusher. In terms of right place, right time, probably the best defensive player in the country. Mm-hmm. You can just keep going on and on. They are stacked. They should be there. And for that reason, I will say I think they'll get there. I think people really are underselling the Dogs. And just the fact that where Kirby has it branded right now, particularly in this NIL era, a lot of it isn't as flashy or say as sexy as what I just said, like with Texas. But at the end of the day, he's going to have a lot of versatile defensive linemen that are going to stay fresh. He's going to have a strong running game. Nate Frazier is going to be one of the better backs in the country. It's a matter of can Gunnar Stockton, that quarterback spot, take another step this year. What can you look at from your receiving production, having lost Zachariah Branch to my Falcons? But I think in terms of the talent pool there, I'd look at them. That'd probably be the 2 that I would pick as far as being at the front of it as far as the SEC this year. But there will be other ones. I mean, look, A&M's always got plenty of cash to spend too. Elko's a very good coach, having a great spot last year. I think that one's more of how much can they get out of Marcel Reed. I think that's an even bigger question than Stockton per se. And then you got another couple programs. And look, you got to mention Kiffin at LSU.
Yeah.
I mean, he's stacked as much talent too. So, that's a little tangent-y. The 3 teams to point at probably for me are along the lines of Texas, LSU, and Georgia, but we'll see.
All right, so last 2 questions for me. All right, so we're going to do an all-time Falcons 7-on-7. Give me your – first, let's do offense first. Give me your quarterback, running back, and then 4. It doesn't have to be 4 receivers. Could be a tight end in there. Give me that right now.
I mean, Matt Ryan's a no-brainer at quarterback. I would say that. Running back's interesting. In terms of who do I think is the most talented running back in Falcons history, I think he's at Flowery Branch right now. I think there does have to be mention and respect shown to the likes of a Michael Turner, a Jamal Anderson, guys of the like. I think it would ultimately come down to Turner and Bijan. But right now, playing where we are, I'd be bold and say I'd take the one we got right now. I'd take Bijan there at the running back spot at receiver. Julio, Roddy White, one of the most underrated receivers in NFL history, in my opinion. Got to throw Tony Gonzalez in there, and the time he had, I'd put him at a tight end spot. And you know what? I'm going to lean back on what I said. I'm going to go a little bold. I am going to throw a Terrence Mathis in there. You know, Terrence, over 8,000 career receiving yards. He's third in Falcons history in terms of receiving touchdowns. I mean, like 1 or 2 behind Roddy in second place. You know, 6th-round pick with the Jets, finds his way over to the Falcons. I mean, you're talking about a guy that was the first in Division I history to have 250-plus catches and 4,000-plus receiving yards in a career, that kind of ability. I'd throw him in there at a 4th spot even. And then kind of throwing it over to defense. You know, you got to throw.
It could be 2 linebackers and a nickel with 4, however you want to set it up.
I'd put John Abraham at an edge spot. You know, Falcons all-time sack leader was 68.5. He's top 15 NFL all-time in terms of sacks, and you add his time with the Jets as well. I'd put Abe at 1. You know, probably easy to throw somebody like a Keith Brook in at the second level, top 15 all-time in terms of tackles. You could put him there. For some of the more old heads, I'd probably throw in Jesse Tuggle as well.
There you go. I was waiting for Jesse Tuggle. Number 58.
I'd put Jesse Tuggle, Valdosta State's finest. I'd put him. You know, though his stint was only 4 years on a rookie deal, you got to put Prime out there at a corner spot.
Yeah, nope, you got to.
You just got to do it. That's 4. Yeah, I think doing these all off the top of my head, you know, I think Patrick Kearney's an interesting, underrated one. I think Kearney is somebody that to have been a Falcons draft pick, 30th overall in that draft. I mean, he had a couple, 2-3 seasons being around a 15-sack guy. You could throw him out there. One name I would want to mention is old Jonathan Babineau at a defensive interior spot. I said earlier in the episode about Jake Matthews feeling like he's played 20 years. You could tell me Babineau played here for 20 years, and I would believe your ass. I mean, he was here that long. That might be part of my answer right there off the top of my head here at the end of the episode. That's some good names thrown out there.
All right, give me an OC and a DC.
God, I hate to say it, but you'd probably have to put Kyle Shanahan on there. I hate to say it. And when I say hate to say it, it's because that's who I blame the most for the 28-3 debacle.
Hand the ball off and get out of there, man. That's all I kept saying. I was like, hand the ball off and get out of there.
Yeah. And you know, from a DC perspective, you'd probably have to go back to more of those older days, some of those original teams, defensively, Claude Humphrey, et cetera, those kind of guys on defense. So I'd go with that answer. Off the top of my head, it's escaping me. But I'd say more the older answer for that, and then Shanahan. I mean, look, Shanahan's brilliant. He's not great with situational football.
And now is Jerry Glanville the broadcaster? Is that what we're going to do?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Hey, Clint, man, I appreciate you, dude. This is great. Looking forward to doing it again as we ramp up in the college football season. And I appreciate your time, man. Where can people that want to follow you on Twitter, anything, website, like throw it out there, let everybody know.
Yeah, and again, thanks for having me. This was great. I had a great time. Would love to come back anytime in the future. As far as finding me, the easiest way to say it is just one-stop shop is on Twitter. My namesake, Clint Goss, at NFL Draft Dome. You could see anything I do there as far as guest spots such as this, some of my weekly coverage with draft professors, my Substack that is focused solely on the NFL draft, any kind of written content I have for any outlets, anything of the like, any of my past work. I always describe it best saying Twitter is kind of the one-stop shop for that.
Absolutely. Well, listen, brother, I appreciate you. You have a good weekend, and we'll be talking soon.
You too. Thank you.
Thanks, bro.